Today we're looking at the 16 Myers-Briggs personalities and where they are in terms of mental age. Now your mental age is emotionally, psychologically, how old do you feel on the inside? So is your personality type an old soul, or is your personality type a child at heart? Starting off with the ISTJ, a type that is very focused on their routines. It's a fairly easy call that ISTJs are pretty much born middle-aged. You'll have a 6-year-old ISTJ out on the playground and they're like,
okay, people, we need to keep the sandbox clean.
ISFPs, they're the adventurers. I think that they have a very clear age as well. Specifically, I would put them at the baby end of the spectrum because they are so open-minded. They approach the world with an open heart. These are subject to change. Some of these, it's like, okay, yeah, but as time goes on, as this fills up, it's gonna move around a little bit. This is interesting. You know, they're the debater type. They're very intellectually driven. They like to explore different ideas. And I would say this puts them somewhere around here. So an ENTP is around maybe 16 years old for their mental age. It's hard to make a judgment call on the mental age of this type. The architect, they plan far ahead. I think many people would say, oh, INTJ should go old, but they're so focused on the future. I feel like that kind of knocks them down to a younger age. I think I'm gonna have to put them above the ENTP, but below the ISTJ. Leave your angry comments down below. ESTPs are risk takers and
daredevils.
they're always on the go. They're out there taking the bull by the horn. And I would say they are probably a baby. You know, my son is 9 months old and he'll like throw himself off the couch and stuff, and he's basically actively trying to hurt himself. And that's kind of what ESTPs are doing all the time, because they just love getting out there and exploring, like my baby. A lot of times with ESFJs, it's said like they want to make everyone feel happy, and a lot of times that's true, but really what's the actual thing that's happening is they just want to make sure that everyone is feeling the same thing. Doesn't have to be happiness. You know, if you and your sibling, one of you gets a cookie, but then the other one didn't get a cookie, so they're crying, the ESFJ thing to do would be like, well, now you gotta split the cookie.
But it's my cookie.
Doesn't matter.
But now I'm upset.
Good. You both should be upset. Actually, I'm just taking the cookie.
Neither of you get a cookie.
There you go. So ESFJ moves in. They're not quite middle-aged. There may be like, I don't know, 30s, somewhere around there. The age at which you start to become like your parents, which you promised you would never do. ISTPs are kind of tough because they have like two sides of them. One side of which is like this great enthusiasm for trying to solve the puzzles in their life. But then there's a side of them that's just like, everyone get away from me. Get off my lawn. And because I feel like the get off my lawn part is very pervasive, we gotta say that the ISTP is closer to the ancient side. Shockingly. They're the managers, they're in charge. A lot of times they have things figured out from a young age too. They kind of just know, well, this is what I'm going to do in life, and now I'm going to get really good at it, and I'm going to smoke the competition. But what I've noticed about ENTJs is that as serious as they can be, they're surprisingly young at heart because they're always willing to kind of like jump in and play with people. When it's time to get something done, they're like, yeah, let's go, come on, I'll help out. And it's like fun to them. I don't get it. I'm gonna say older than ENTP, but younger than INTJ. INTJs, they don't like to play. INTJs are like, playa, don't play. The ENFPs are the class clowns of Myers-Briggs. They just can't help it. They're funny all the time. They don't even mean to be funny. They don't even realize they're doing it. They're definitely gonna be next to the ENTP, but the question is, do they go older or younger? Bear with me, folks, bear with me. All right, there we go. Now we've added some more very necessary steps in between. Baby, kid, teen, young adult, middle-aged, just old, just not too old, but just old, and then ancient. This is shocking. Prepare to get shocked. Prepare to go like, oh my gosh, Frank, why did you shock me? The ENFP I'm putting in a tie with the ENTJ. Now this seems to go against the laws of nature. To be a class clown, you need that kind of teenage, I'm too cool for school attitude. ENTPs are at the level of, I'm 12 years old, I know everything. So later on, we have a tie to break. INFPs, everyone on the internet would be like,
INFPs, they cry all the time. They're babies.
which is true. But INFPs, they're intense. It's true. A lot of times INFPs put up kind of a goofy exterior and they'll be like,
Oh, head in the clouds. I'm chasing butterflies across a meadow.
if you get into a deep conversation with an INFP, it's clear that they ain't kids, but they do maintain kind of a sense of childlike wonder. So you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna take the INFP, we're gonna kind of just put them out over here. We'll put them here by my green drink, which I said over here and forgot about. I think ESFPs get a bad rap. They get like a stereotype of being kind of like ditzy, not serious. I'm actually going to say that the true age, the mental age of the ESFP is right next to the mental age of their opposite type, the INTJ. ESFPs, they have like a worldliness to them. They're very cosmopolitan. And I don't just mean that they read Cosmopolitan or drink Cosmos, okay? Despite the fact that ESFPs do often kind of like just go around, do their own thing, don't have a plan for their life, they understand the way the world works a bit earlier than a lot of these other types. They also might have the style of an adult from an early age. So we're gonna break that tie later. These are tough type, man. They're like drill sergeants. But you know, another thing about ESTJs that's very common that they all do is they really like to say no. They'll just tell you no all the time. Hey, do you think that's a good idea? No. Hey, you want to come to my birthday party? No. Hey, what's that Japanese form of theater called where they walk really slow and they wear slippers? No. It's a theater joke. No one gets it. So I'm going to put them over here at around the 2-year-old level because 2-year-olds like to say no. Welcome the 45% of you who just skipped to the INFJ part. Before we talk about the INFJ, I send out an email every Monday. I send out a motivational, inspirational 2 to 3 minute read. It's called the word of the week. And no, it's not like a new vocabulary word, but it takes a single word, a common word that we all know, and then uses that as an entry point for some introspection. For example, a couple weeks ago, the word of the week was kick. And in that word of the week, I talked about how a lot of people who have done great things had a period early on where they felt like they were getting the crap kicked out of them. So if you feel like life is kicking the crap out of you right now, don't give up. Keep going. This whole week, just think of the word kick and you'll think of that message. Go to infj.me/word of the week. You'll get an email right away with your first word of the week. You'll get access to the last 20 words of the week. You'll get one every Monday. There's no spam. I'm not trying to sell you anything here. It's not just for INFJs. That's just the link. infj.me/word of the week. Sign up right now. Now, you know, on the 16personalities.com, they have the INFJ characters, got a long beard and everything. And it makes a lot of sense. A lot of INFJs have a wisdom beyond their years. But the thing that doesn't get talked about is that on the surface, a lot of INFJs have kind of this fun persona that they put out there because they are, after all, feelers. And so if they can entertain someone, if they can make someone smile, that makes them feel good. But despite that, I think 16personalities.com is onto something there with the bearded avatar of the INFJ. And I'm going to say that they might be just old. I'm not sure if they're ancient. I'm not so sure that they are at that point. That'll be a tiebreaker later. ISFJs, they love tradition. They love getting everyone together for a nice home-cooked meal of lasagna, followed up by homemade cannoli, grandma's recipe that she brought over on the boat from Italy. ISFJs are usually always nice, but they do have like a crotchety side to them on the inside. If you talk to them for a while, they're just like stone cold. They don't really care. They have no feelings. But I'm going to say that the ISFJ is just a little bit older than the ISTJ. So if the ISTJ is like in their 40s, we'll say ISFJ is 64. Just like the Beatles song, When I'm 64. It can be tough because you meet ENFJ children who seem like much more mature and old souls. But then you will meet older ENFJs who have retained like a lot of youthfulness. So I would say this puts them in a tie with their sister type, the ESFJ. We got figured out later. INTPs are another tough one. This is the last one we have to put on the board. From a young age, they have like this professorial vibe to them. They just have a very sharp brain from early on. So I'm gonna actually put them in a tie here with the ISTJ, but for different reasons. So the ISTJ, you know, they have a very serious, let's get down to business. Whereas the INTP has the true age of middle, just because they tend to be processing things a lot faster than other people and making sense of the world very quickly. I haven't forgotten about the INFP. I just want to see how some of these tiebreakers shake out first. I think the way to figure this out is by asking what kind of book would they be the protagonist in? Who is more likely to be the protagonist of like a young adult book aimed at teenagers, and who is more likely to be the subject of a middle grade book aimed at kids who are like 10 to 12. The ENTJ is much more likely to be a teen protagonist, and the ENFP is a little bit closer to 12 range.
Frank, earlier you said they were a class clown who was in high school.
I know. This next tiebreaker is INTJ and ESFP. So basically asking who is going into college and who has graduated already. This is another shocker because I'm going to say that the ESFP is actually going to be older here. ESFPs are just more like that kind of mental age where it's like, I've partied a lot over the last few years. I'm not done, but I've grown a lot. And I've developed my fashion sense. INTJs think they know everything, and a lot of times they do. Just like someone at this age, hypothetically. We're in between young adult and middle age. We're in our 30s, and a big shift happens around this time. Who is more likely to go to bed before 9:30 and who is more likely to go to bed after 9:30. The ENFJ is much more likely to stay up late. ESFJs are much more likely to be aware of like, I am going to feel like trash tomorrow if I don't get exactly 7.5 hours of sleep. I think the way we can figure this out is to ask what social media sites, specifically like a video site, let's narrow it down, are they most likely to be on? INTP, probably right here on YouTube. ISTJ, a little bit more likely to be on Facebook. Now we have our last tiebreaker, the ISTP and the INFJ. Who is older? Who is more ancient than the other? Who is pushing 100? What do people who are 100 do besides eat dinner at 4 o'clock? They've seen everything, so they just give out advice left and right and tell you to go after your dreams. And I think between the two of them, it's clear the more likely one to do that all the time from a very young age is the INFJ. ISTPs don't give advice until they get older. But we're talking about mental age, so like from a young age, who acts like they're 100. Now we have the INFP. Now INFPs, they have kind of, I don't know, an aura about them, a depth to them that makes it feel like they've seen everything. They've felt stuff that only really old people would feel. They feel a lifetime of emotions by the time they're not old. But at the same time, INFPs do have kind of like a playfulness to them, a childlike wonder that they keep with them throughout their life. But that doesn't seem right either. There it is. Can't even really tell what that. The INFP ends up being so young, such a baby, that it goes around and becomes also simultaneously the oldest type, symbolizing what every INFP knows, that life is not a straight line, but an endless cycle.